Jason opened his eyes slowly. His head was heavy, and everything around him felt wrong. The air was filled with smoke, dust, and a strange smell. He coughed and tried to sit up, but pain shot through his chest. The ship had crashed. He could see broken wires, sparks, and blood on the floor. Metal pieces were everywhere. The lights were flickering, and the air was cold. He looked around, trying to understand where he was. This was not Earth, and this was not the same ship he had boarded. It looked older now, more damaged than it should be, and too quiet. He shouted, "Hello, is anyone alive?" No one answered. He pushed himself up, holding his side where it hurt the most. The gravity felt strange, lighter than Earth, but heavier than space. As he stood, he heard something soft breathing. It was coming from the corner of the ship. He turned and saw her. She was sitting on the floor, leaning against a broken wall. Her skin was silver blue, glowing faintly in the dark. Her eyes were large and bright, with a deep blue color. She was not human. But she looked calm, peaceful even. She stared at Jason without speaking. Her chest was rising slowly. She was alive but weak. Jason took a step forward, unsure if she was a threat. "Are you okay?" he asked. She blinked once, then nodded slowly. Her leg was bleeding, a deep cut just above the knee. Jason looked around for something to help. He tore a piece of cloth from a broken seat and moved closer to her. She didn't stop him. He tied the cloth tightly around her leg, trying to stop the bleeding. "What's your name?" he asked. She looked at him and spoke, but the words were not English. Still, her voice was soft and gentle. He pointed to himself and said, "Jason." She touched her chest and said, "Lyra." Jason smiled weakly. "Okay, Lyra, we need to get out of here." But where was here? Jason looked out of a broken window. The sky outside was green, with two suns. The ground was purple and filled with tall, twisted trees. This was not a place he had ever seen before. He checked the ship's panel, but it was dead. No power, no signal, nothing. The crash had destroyed everything. Even the emergency beacon was broken. He found a small flashlight and walked through the hallway. The ship was empty. No bodies, no crew, no signs of where they went. Just silence. He returned to Lyra, who was now trying to stand. He helped her up. She leaned on him, and together they walked toward the cargo door. It was jammed, but Jason pushed hard until it opened. They stepped outside. The air was clean, but smelled strange. Lyra took a deep breath and looked at the sky. Her eyes looked sad, like she had seen this place before. Jason asked, "Do you know this planet?" She didn't answer. Instead, she pointed toward the forest. Jason saw something move, just for a second, a shadow between the trees, tall and fast. His heart started beating faster. "We need to stay near the ship," he said. He helped Lyra back inside and blocked the door with metal parts. Night came quickly. One of the suns disappeared behind the mountains. The temperature dropped, and the colors of the planet changed. The trees began to glow, and strange sounds filled the air. Jason couldn't sleep. He kept hearing footsteps outside, slow, heavy steps. But when he looked through the window, there was nothing, just the glowing trees and the dark forest. Lyra was asleep, her breathing now steady. Jason sat near her, flashlight in hand. He felt alone, confused, and scared. Then he saw it. On the wall of the ship, near the engine room, something was written. It was burned into the metal, like it had been scorched by fire. Strange symbols, but underneath them, in perfect English, were 3 words: "You are watched." Jason stepped back. His hands were shaking. Who wrote this? When? How did they know English? He looked at Lyra, who was now awake and staring at him. Her face was pale, her eyes wide. She had seen the message too. Jason whispered, "What is this place?" Lyra didn't speak. She just stared at the wall. then at him. And finally, she said in a quiet voice, "Not safe." Jason didn't sleep that night. The air inside the crashed ship was cold and heavy. Outside, strange lights moved through the trees. And something or someone was walking around the wreck. He stayed close to Lyra, holding the small flashlight in one hand and a metal rod in the other. Every sound made him turn. Every shadow made his heart race. In the morning, the light returned, but the fear stayed. Jason stepped outside again, careful and slow. The twin suns were up, casting long shadows across the purple ground. The tall trees looked peaceful now. But he knew they were not alone. Lyra followed him, walking slowly with her injured leg. It was healing faster than he expected. The bleeding had stopped, and the skin was already closing. Jason looked at her with surprise. "Your leg? It's almost healed," he said. She gave a small nod, not looking at him. They walked around the crash site, trying to understand what had happened. Jason saw no signs of the crew, no escape pods, no footprints. It was like they had vanished into thin air. He checked the ground carefully and saw something strange. Footprints, but not human. Large, deep, with 3 long toes and claw marks. They circled the ship, going around and around in wide loops. Jason counted them, 5, 6, maybe more. He pointed at them and said, "Lyra, look." She stepped closer and frowned. Then she said something in her own language, something Jason couldn't understand. But her voice was tense and her eyes were full of fear. They followed the tracks into the edge of the forest. The trees were tall and thin, with glowing blue leaves. The ground was soft and covered with small red plants that squished under their feet. After a few meters, the footprints disappeared, just vanished. Like the creature had flown away or melted into the ground. Jason looked around and said, "This doesn't make sense." Lyra didn't answer. She was staring at a tree nearby. There was something on its bark, symbols like the ones inside the ship. Jason touched them gently. Burned into the wood, old and dry. It looked like a warning. Suddenly, a sound came from deep in the forest, a low growl, long and cold. Jason and Lyra both froze. The noise didn't sound like any animal he knew. It was heavy, like it came from a big chest. Slow and dangerous, they turned back quickly and rushed toward the ship. Jason helped Lyra climb over the broken ramp and shut the door behind them. He used metal pieces to block the entrance again. That night, the sounds returned. More footsteps, closer than before, scratching noises along the ship. Walls, like something was dragging its claws across the metal. Jason held his breath and stayed still. Lyra sat beside him, her hands shaking for the first time. Then, just past midnight, there was a loud bang. Something slammed into the ship's side, hard. Jason jumped, the flashlight shaking in his hand. Another bang, and then another. It was testing the walls, looking for a way in. Jason crawled to the back of the ship where the security cameras were. Only one was still working, showing the area behind the ship. He looked at the screen and saw it. A tall figure, just standing there, not moving. Its body was black and thin, almost like smoke. It had no face, only glowing red dots where eyes should be. Jason whispered, "Lyra, come here." She looked at the screen and covered her mouth. She knew what it was. He could see it in her eyes. "What is that?" Jason asked. She spoke one word in English. "Hunter." Jason felt his blood turn cold. The hunter didn't move, but it kept watching the ship. It stayed there for hours, even as the sun began to rise again. And just before it disappeared into the trees, it raised one long finger and pointed directly at the camera. Jason shut off the screen. He turned to Lyra. "We need to leave this place," he said. She nodded, then said something he didn't expect. "There is a tunnel." He blinked. "What tunnel?" Lyra pointed to the lower deck of the ship, below the cargo room. "Old tunnel, hidden." Jason felt a small spark of hope. If there was a tunnel, maybe it led somewhere safer. Or maybe it was another trap. But staying here meant waiting to die. They packed what little they could, food packs. Light tools, the flashlight. Lyra tied her leg with a new bandage. Though it looked almost fully healed, Jason opened the hatch below the cargo floor. A cold wind rushed out, smelling like metal and dust. Below them was darkness, a tunnel, just like she said. Jason looked at her and asked, "Are you sure about this?" Lyra didn't smile. She just said, "Better than up here." They climbed down the ladder, step by step. As the hatch closed above them, the ship above shook again. The hunter was back, but Jason and Lyra were already gone, into the darkness below, where new secrets waited. Jason and Lyra climbed down the metal ladder. The air below was colder. Thicker, the tunnel was dark, but the flashlight helped them see. The walls were not part of the original ship. They were made of black stone, shaped and smooth. Old carvings ran along both sides, symbols that glowed faintly when they passed. Lyra touched one of them gently. The glow became brighter, like it knew her. Jason asked, "Do you know this place?" Lyra didn't answer right away. She looked ahead, her face serious. "This tunnel is from before." She said, "Before what?" Jason asked. "Before my people left this planet." Jason paused, confused. "Your people lived here." Nodded slowly, "A long time ago. But they left when the hunters came." Jason felt a chill. "The same hunters outside?" Lyra's voice was soft. "Yes. They are older than my race, but they hunt anything they fear." They kept moving deeper. Into the tunnel, it twisted like a spiral, going far below the surface every few meters. They saw more strange writing, some in symbols, some in broken English. One said, "This is the last shelter." Another read, "They took the minds, but not the bones." Jason didn't know what that meant, but Lyra moved faster now, like she knew where they were going. After some time, the tunnel opened into a wide chamber. The ceiling was high, shaped like a dome. In the center was an old console, covered in dust. But the screen was still glowing. Jason moved closer and brushed off the dust. The screen showed a map, not just of the tunnel, but of the entire planet. Dots blinked on several places, most marked in red. One dot blinked green. And it was directly under them. Jason pointed at it. "Is that us?" Lyra nodded. "This is a safe zone, but not forever." Jason looked around the room. It was too quiet. He didn't trust it. Then he heard it, a soft crack behind them. He turned quickly. The wall was moving, or something inside it, before he could react. The floor beneath them cracked. A trapdoor opened, and both of them fell. Jason hit the ground hard. His flashlight rolled away and went out. It was dark again. He called out, "Lyra, are you okay?" No answer. He scrambled to find the flashlight, turned it back on. Then he saw her. She was trapped under a broken piece of metal. Her leg was pinned and twisted at a terrible angle. Blood was pooling under her. Jason rushed to her side. "I'll get you out," he said. He tried to lift the metal, but it was too heavy. Lyra grabbed his arm. Her voice was weak. "No time." Jason shook his head. "No, I'll figure it out." But Lyra looked into his eyes and said something that stopped him cold, "Cut my leg off." Jason stared at her, thinking he misheard. "What?" "No, I can't do that." Lyra gritted her teeth, her breath shaky. "It will grow back, I promise, but we need to move now." Jason hesitated. He had never hurt anyone in his life. Now she was asking him to cut off her leg. He looked at the blood, at the trap, at the noises getting closer. Something was coming. The tunnel wasn't safe anymore. Lyra gave him a small knife she kept tied to her belt. Her hands were shaking, but her eyes were steady. "Please, Jason," she said, "I trust you." Jason took the knife, his hand trembling. He took a deep breath. "I'm sorry," he whispered. Then he did it. The cut was clean, but hard. Lyra screamed but didn't fight. Her body shook, and her skin began to shimmer. The moment the leg was free, Jason lifted her into his arms and ran. He followed a smaller tunnel ahead. It was narrow and low, but the air was fresh. Behind them, the sound of the hunter echoed again, but they kept going. Jason didn't stop until he reached another chamber. This one smaller. He laid Lyra down. Gently, to his shock, her leg had already started to change. New tissue was forming where the cut was. It was like watching a plant grow in fast motion. Jason stared in silence. Lyra opened her eyes and smiled weakly. "I told you." Jason smiled back, still breathing hard. "You're crazy," he said. She laughed softly. "Maybe." He sat beside her, exhausted. But then, the lights in this new room turned on by themselves. A voice played from hidden speakers. It said in English, "Subject human has reached checkpoint 3. Test continues." Jason stood up, shocked. "Test? What test?" Lyra looked away, suddenly quiet. She knew something, and Jason realized this was not just survival. They were part of something much bigger. Jason stood frozen. The speaker's voice still echoed in the small chamber. "Subject human has reached checkpoint 3. Test continues." He looked at the ceiling, at the walls, but saw no camera. No speakers, nothing. The voice had come from nowhere, or everywhere. "What test?" He whispered. Lyra sat up slowly, her new leg almost fully grown. Her skin was pale, her eyes distant. Jason turned to her. "You knew, didn't you?" She didn't answer. Instead, she looked at the wall's old metal panels, smooth and silent. Then she said, "Not like this." Jason stepped closer. "What do you mean?" "I knew there were tests," she said, "but not this deep, not this old." Jason's mind was spinning. He had been part of a crew on a deep space mission. Their goal was to study unknown planets. Now he was trapped underground with a half-alien girl who could regrow her limbs. And they were part of some ancient test he didn't understand. He rubbed his face and sighed. "Let's just find a way out." They left the small room and entered another tunnel. This one was different. The walls glowed faintly, and the air was warmer. The deeper they walked, the more the air felt alive. Then Jason heard it, a whisper. He stopped and looked around. "Did you hear that?" Lyra nodded slowly. "Yes. It begins here." "Begins what?" Jason asked, but she didn't answer. The whispers grew louder as they moved forward. They weren't clear, just soft voices in different tones. Some sounded like children, some like old people. Some were speaking in English, some in alien languages, but one thing was clear. They were saying his name. Jason, Jason, over and over again, like a chant. He shivered and pointed the flashlight toward the walls. There were faces carved into the metal, hundreds of them, some smiling, some crying, some screaming. And every time the light touched them, they moved slightly. Not real movement, but the feeling that they had just turned. "This place is wrong," Jason muttered. Lyra stopped and touched one of the faces. "They used memory stone," she said. "Every person who died here left part of their mind behind." Jason stepped back. "This is a grave." Lyra nodded. "A smart grave." The whispers grew louder. One voice broke through the others, strong and clear. It was a man's voice. Deep and tired. "Jason Cross, second officer, Earth vessel." "Horizon?" Jason's eyes widened. "That's me," the voice continued. "If you're hearing this, you've reached the inner test zone. You must choose what to keep and what to leave behind. There is no rescue, only passage." Jason stared at the wall where the voice came from. There, carved into the metal, was the face of a man. He looked human. And beneath the face was a name, LT, Commander Paul Reyes. Jason remembered that name. He had read it in the mission logs. Reyes was part of an Earth mission that disappeared 10 years ago. They had landed on this planet and were never found. Lyra stepped beside him. They failed the test, she said. Jason turned to her. What is the test? She looked at him with sad eyes. To become more than human. Jason shook his head. I didn't sign up for this. No one ever does, she replied. They walked deeper into the tunnel. The floor changed beneath them, turning to smooth. Glass lights appeared under their feet, showing old images. Jason saw Earth. His home, his family, his training. He saw the crash, the missing crew. He saw Lyra, not just from now, but from before. Talking to others, watching him from a screen, he turned and grabbed her arm. You were watching me? Lyra nodded. Yes, but I didn't know you would survive. I thought you would be like the others. Jason pulled away from her. You lied. I protected you. She said, when the crash came, I made sure your pod opened first. Jason didn't know what to feel. Anger, betrayal, or confusion. He sat down on the cold floor. Trying to think. The whispers had stopped now. The tunnel was quiet. Lyra sat beside him. She reached out and gently placed a hand on his shoulder. I made a choice, she said. I broke rules to help you, and now I can't go back. Jason looked at her. You don't have to go back. She smiled, just a little. Then we go forward. They stood again and walked to the end of the tunnel. A large metal door blocked the way. Jason placed his hand on the scanner beside it. It scanned his palm, beeped once. And the door opened slowly. Bright light poured in, a new room, even older, filled with strange machines, and at the center, a glowing pillar with something inside. Jason stepped forward. It was a heart, mechanical, but beating, and as they entered, the door behind them closed with a loud thud. Another voice spoke. Calm, deep, and not human. Final stage unlocked. Human evolution begins. Jason and Lyra looked at each other and stepped into the light. The room was brighter than anything Jason had seen since the crash. The walls were made of smooth white metal that glowed without heat. Strange machines lined the edges of the chamber, humming softly at the center. The glowing pillar pulsed. Like a living heartbeat, Jason stepped closer, drawn by the light. Inside the pillar was a floating shape, small and black, but alive. It looked like a heart, but not a human one. It was mechanical, glowing, and somehow breathing. Lyra stayed. Behind him, her eyes wide with fear and recognition, Jason asked, "What is that?" She whispered, "It's the core." "The core of what?" he asked. She looked down and said, "The test." Jason turned to her, confused. "I don't understand." Lyra walked toward the machines and touched one of the panels. A screen lit up, showing Earth, his home, spinning slowly in space. Jason stepped back. How do they have this? More images followed, cities, people, oceans, memories, and then him. Jason saw his own face on the screen. Videos of him training, laughing, working, sleeping. They had been watching him for a long time, even before the crash. He whispered, "Why me?" Lyra answered quietly, "Because you're human. And they believe humans are ready." Jason clenched his fists. Ready for what? She looked into his eyes for the next step. Suddenly, the screens changed. A new message appeared, clear and cold. Warning. Subject has bonded with forbidden entity. Human judgment compromised. Prepare to isolate and correct. Jason looked at Lyra. What does that mean? She stepped away from the console. I broke a law, Jason. I was not supposed to help you. Why did you? He asked. She paused. Then said, because you were kind, and brave, and different. Before Jason could respond, a loud alarm echoed through the room. The walls shook. and the machines turned red. Another screen turned on an old video, damaged and flickering. It showed a man with tired eyes and a torn uniform. Jason stepped closer. He recognized the symbol, Earth Vessel Horizon. The man on the screen spoke slowly, his voice broken but clear. "If you're watching this, you've made it to the core. We were the first crew sent here, 10 years ago. But this planet, it's not just a place, it's a machine, an ancient intelligence, and it watches us." Jason leaned in, listening carefully. They said it was a test. The man continued, "But the test never ends. It changes you, controls you. I lost half my team before I realized." The screen flickered. Then one last sentence came through. "Don't trust the one who regenerates." Jason turned slowly. Lyra was standing behind him, quiet and still. Her face was hard to read, but something had changed in her eyes. He took a step back. What did he mean? Lyra shook her head. "I don't know," but her voice didn't sound sure. Jason stared at her. "Were you really sent to help me?" She didn't answer. Instead, she turned and walked toward the pillar. She placed her hand on it, and the heartbeat sound grew louder. The machines reacted, lights flashing, codes running across the screens. Jason shouted, "Lyra, stop." She didn't move. The pillar glowed brighter, and a wave of energy passed through the room. Jason fell to one knee, clutching his head. Visions filled his mind, not memories, but possibilities. He saw himself with metal skin, with glowing eyes. He saw Earth burning. Lyra standing in front of a crowd, speaking words he didn't understand. And then silence. He opened his eyes, gasping for breath. Lyra was lying on the ground. Unconscious, the pillar had dimmed. Jason crawled to her and held her head gently. "Lyra, wake up." She opened her eyes slowly. "I didn't mean to hurt you," she whispered. Jason looked down at her. "I don't know what to believe anymore." A new door opened at the back of the room. A dark hallway stretched ahead. Silent and waiting, Jason looked at Lyra. "Can you walk?" She nodded weakly. He helped her up, and they walked into the new corridor. Jason's mind was spinning. The message still echoed. Don't trust the one who regenerates. But Lyra had saved him, more than once. Could that message be wrong? As they moved deeper into the corridor, the lights turned blue. A voice spoke again, not from a machine, but from inside Jason's head. "One truth remains. Only one will leave this place." Jason stopped walking. He looked at Lyra, and she looked at him. No one said anything, because now they both understood. The final test was not just survival. It was a choice. The hallway was long, dark, and silent. Jason and Lyra walked slowly, side by side. The walls were cold and smooth, glowing with a pale blue light. Neither of them spoke. They both heard the voice inside their minds. Only one will leave this place. Jason's heart felt heavy. He looked at Lyra. She was quiet, her face unreadable. Her steps were slower now, as if something was pulling her down. Finally, they reached the end of the hallway. The path opened into a wide chamber. In the center was a circular platform surrounded by floating crystals. The air shimmered, and strange energy pulsed from the floor. Jason stepped forward, but Lyra didn't move. He turned and asked, "What is this place?" She lowered her eyes and said, "This is where the final choice happens." Jason looked around. "Choice?" "Yes," she whispered. "One stays behind, one goes free." It's always been like this. Jason stepped back, confused and angry. So this was the plan all along. Get me here, test me, then force me to choose. Lyra nodded slowly. "My people created this place long ago," she said. "It was made to find something greater, a life form that could lead both humans and aliens forward." Jason clenched his fists. But why lie? Why the crash, the hunters, the pain? Lyra looked at him, her voice soft because only in pain. The truth is born. Jason turned away. Pacing the room, he was tired, confused, and angry. He had trusted her, fought beside her, even hurt her to save her, and now he was told that only one of them would survive. He stopped walking. "Why me?" he asked. Lyra walked slowly to the edge of the platform. "Because you chose to care." When others only fought, Jason stepped onto the platform. The crystals floated higher, reacting to his presence. Lights formed around him, images of his memories, training, missions, the crash, Lyra's injury, and the tunnel. He saw everything again, like a movie playing in the air. Then Lyra stepped onto the platform. The lights changed, her memories appeared, her birth, her training. The order to watch him, her face when he saved her, her face when she asked him to cut her leg. Jason stared at the images. "You were supposed to report on me," he said. Lyra nodded, "Yes, at first. But then I saw who you really were." "And who is that?" Jason asked. "A person who saves others, even when it hurts," she said. Then a machine rose from the center of the platform. It had two buttons, one red, one white. A calm voice echoed through the chamber. "Press red to exit and survive. Press white to stay and protect. Only one may choose." Jason looked at Lyra. She was staring at the white button. Tears ran down her face. "I already made my choice," she said. Jason felt a cold wave pass through him. "No, wait." But she moved forward and touched the white button. Light exploded around her. Her body froze, then lifted gently off the ground. The chamber shook, and a beam of light shot upward through the roof. Jason screamed. "Why?" Lyra looked at him one last time. Her voice entered his mind, soft and full of pain. "You showed me hope. Jason, you deserve to leave." Then she vanished. Gone like smoke in the wind, the red button began to glow. The same voice spoke again. "Exit now active. Human may proceed." Jason stood there, silent. He felt like part of him had been torn away. He stepped off the platform and walked toward the exit door. As he walked, the room behind him slowly faded to darkness. A long tunnel appeared, filled with white light. He walked through it, step by step. At the end, a door opened, and the sky above was blue again. He was on the surface. A rescue drone hovered above him, scanning his face. "Survivor detected." A robotic voice said, "You are safe now." But Jason didn't feel safe. He looked back at the mountains. He knew she was still down there, somewhere in the machines. Watching, protecting, forgotten, when the ship arrived and took him away. He kept his eyes on the ground the whole time. He didn't speak, he didn't smile, because he didn't win. He only survived. Jason sat in silence inside the rescue ship. The stars outside the window didn't bring him peace. He had escaped the tunnels, the tests, and the core. But he had left something behind. No, not something, someone. Lyra, the pilot, was a robot. Silent and efficient. It didn't ask questions. It didn't care about feelings. It only flew the ship toward the nearest human base. But Jason's mind was still underground. He kept thinking about her last words. "You deserve to leave." And he hated them. After a few hours, the ship stopped near an orbiting station. Soldiers came aboard. Doctors scanned his body. Everyone asked questions, but Jason gave short answers. He said the crew was gone, the crash was real, and the mission had failed, but he didn't talk about the test or Lyra or the final choice. He kept that part locked inside. Because they wouldn't understand, and maybe they didn't deserve to. Late that night, Jason sat alone in a medical room. A screen on the wall showed the planet below. Dark, quiet, and dangerous, and yet he felt a pull toward it, suddenly. The screen flickered. A new message appeared, short and simple. Transmission detected from below surface. Source: Core Vault. Jason's heart skipped a beat. He rushed to the controls and opened the signal. The screen showed static for a moment. Then an image appeared. It was Lyra. Her face was faint, her body glowing. She looked different, less physical, more energy. But it was her, Jason. Her voice said softly, "If you can see this, then I'm still here. The system accepted my choice. I became part of it." She smiled. But it was a sad smile. "I can hold them back for now," she said. "But the core wants more. It wants Earth." Jason stood frozen. "What do you mean?" He whispered. Lyra's voice continued. "It's sending signals, plans, instructions. Someone will build a gateway, and they will open it unless someone stops it." Jason looked at the control panel. A red button blinked manual. "Override," the words below said. "Planet burn sequence, one use only." He stared at it. One button, one choice. If he pressed it, the core would be destroyed, the planet would burn, and Lyra would die with it. But if he didn't, the core could reach Earth, it could test, control, and change more people. Just like it tried with him. Jason sat down. He placed his hand near the button. His fingers shook. The door behind him opened. A woman in uniform walked in. "We're ready to debrief you." "Officer Cross," she said. Jason nodded. Just one moment he looked back at the screen. Lyra was still there, waiting. "I won't stop you," she said. "You have to choose." Jason closed his eyes. He remembered their journey, the crash, the forest, the whispers, the pain, the fear, the trust. The moment she asked him to cut off her leg, the moment she gave up everything to save him. He opened his eyes and pressed the red button. Alarms began to flash on the screen. Burn sequence initiated. Planet core destabilizing. Evacuation impossible. Lyra looked calm. "I'm glad it was you," she said. Then the screen went black. Jason sat there, silent. No one else in the room knew what he had done. They would ask questions, run tests, file reports, but none of them would know the truth. He had saved them. He had destroyed a secret that no one would ever believe. He had burned a world and lost the only one who believed in him. Days passed. Jason was cleared, promoted, called a hero. But he never smiled. He never spoke of Lyra. Sometimes at night, he would look at the stars and wonder if some part of her still existed in the light. Maybe not in body, but in memory, in energy, in something greater. He whispered to the sky, "You saved me." Not the other way around. And then he closed his eyes and listened to the silence. The test was over, but the pain remained. And so did the truth. Jason Cross had survived. But he would never forget the alien girl who gave everything so that he could live. The end.